Okay. All right. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is I think this is an exciting community call. This is the first one we've had since releasing Tempo 2.0. So this is great. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We shared the Google Doc in the Slack channel. And so if you haven't opened that, we kind of have a light agenda in there, but you're welcome to add anything to it. Feedback or issues or discussion topics, anything. We love to hear it. So otherwise, I can go ahead and start off. Yeah, we'll just talk about Tempo 2.0. So, all right. So we're all really excited about this. This represents months and months of work by dozens of people, huge effort, but we think it's a great release, best release of Tempo, tons of new features in there, kind of like very large changes to how Tempo works internally. So we're really happy about that. Yeah, so the big feature in here is probably TraceQL. That's really cool. I mean, we knew we wanted a query language for a long time, and but we kind of needed the new backend storage to kind of like power that. So the existing one just wasn't going to be efficient enough. So the new backend is the Parquet. So that's that was actually released in 1.5, and I know some people were interested enough to go ahead and try that, and that was really cool. And of course, we were using it ourselves internally for a long time, several months. But it's finally the default. It's we feel like it's production ready. We've been using it behind Grafana Cloud for months now, so we feel pretty good. Yeah, so that's turned on by default, and so is TraceQL. You don't need to do anything to enable that on the Tempo side. There is a feature flag on the Grafana side. And also, you may need to upgrade your Grafana instances. So yeah, I guess I just want to say, yeah, we should just thank you to the whole team and everyone and all community contributors and everyone. So it was a huge effort. Yeah, Zach. Yeah, cool. So there's a couple links here in the document. There's a blog post kind of like from Joe about Tempo 2.0, kind of covers like the new features and the basics. There are some breaking changes. So when you're upgrading, I think we have a really good upgrade guide in the documentation. So kind of cover the breaking changes and then other things like settings, defaults that have changed, that you may need to be aware of. Yeah, so, and of course we have a patch release upcoming. So there's a couple kind of smaller issues and things that we weren't able to get there in time. So yeah, there's also a link here to the 201 milestone. And I don't think there's anything critical in there, except for there are some people that are impacted. And I think if you are impacted, you know it. So that's good. So, yep. Oh, yeah, we got some activity in the document here. Yeah, and then a couple days ago, there was another blog post, just kind of like getting to know TraceQL. So that link is in there too. So kind of like just a good way to get into the basics of it and get up and running. Cool. Yeah, so I guess I'd like to do kind of a survey here. Like, is anyone running Tempo 2.0 yet, or have you been using Parquet or TraceQL? Yeah, cool. Do you have any feedback or thoughts or like that you'd like to share? Sure, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we with the version 1.5 we enable Parquet, and now we have it with the 2.0. And I can say that at least in our ingesters, I see that it's working better. So like performance improved there. I also see the compactors working better. I don't know if I had some issues before, but now I see I have the block list like better. And so far, like it just feel faster. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the version that was in 1.5 was stable, but the performance wasn't where we wanted it to be. Yeah, and so that was a big focus of effort between 1.5 and 2.0. Yeah. Yeah, especially getting it to run better at higher scales and yeah, like better use of memory, handling large traces, things like that. Yeah, cool. Cool. Yeah, deployed V2 this morning. Okay, cool, great. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. Except for the breaking changes and things. Yeah, I think it was pretty good. All right. Cool. Um, yeah. So, okay. Mentioned about resource usage. Yeah, that's true. So 3x. So we were estimating maybe about 50% higher is what we've been seeing internally compared to, this is with Tempo 2.0. So in 1.5 with Parquet, that was definitely higher. 3x is definitely more than we were expecting. Yeah. Oh, on the S3 storage. Yeah. Yeah. So, but for CPU and memory, I think we were kind of seeing 50% more resource usage. But I think it's worth it, right? For the new features. Like, yeah, I think, and it's still, Tempo is still very cost effective as far for a backend. So I think it was a good choice. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, really, this is all we kind of wanted to cover, and we can talk a little bit more about maybe some of these things that are in here, but this was the big news. This is the first community call since Tempo 2.0. Yeah, sure, Fausto, go for it.
Yeah, I have seen that using TrustQL, now I can query like longer hours. Like before, I was limit. So there's a settings that you can say, okay, I can query like a 1 hour or 3 hours or so in one go. But now I do like sometimes like, okay, look in the last 6 hours, but my default was 1 hour. I don't know if this is a feature or something that should be addressed, but it's working fine for me, so I like it so far.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think we increased the default query time range to 24 hours.
Cool. Okay.
Does that match what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it used to be smaller. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, just V2 wasn't efficient enough, so it had to do a lot of work to search through. So 1 hour is quite a lot of work. But on Parquet, with addressing the columns and also like the internal metadata, you can skip over things a lot more efficiently. Yeah. Yeah, actually 24 hours is probably, that's something that probably could be higher in the future. Like I think, yeah, maybe that works for some cases, but yeah, as we improve the things, I think we could definitely increase that. And of course, you could increase it yourself. Luke, yeah,
Hi, yeah. I had a question about yeah, about how to handle like scaling up tempo queries. I noticed that with TraceQL, uh the memory usage can really spike up, and when I throw a lot of tempo queries at it, it really helps to handle some larger, expensive TraceQL queries. But is there like a recommended way on how to scale this up? Like I noticed there was some documentation about using like lambda functions or other sort of scaling functions like that, or is like an auto scaler sufficient most of the time? Just trying to figure out, yeah, what are some like cost effective ways, or any like recommendations the team might have for handling that.
sure, yeah, yeah. So there are a lot of knobs that to turn with all this new stuff. So one might be the TraceQL query. So if you just like a short recommendation would be use scoped attributes if you can. So in that case, that would be like instead of dot HTTP dot status code, span dot HTTP dot status code is more precise. And if you're following the semantic conventions, that's where the HTTP status code would be. And so that when you do that, that lets Tempo know only to look at the span level attribute column for that one versus searching everywhere, which is the resource level and the span. So that there are ways to like make the query a little bit more efficient. And these are just early things and kind of maybe, is not intended, but this is something that works. So maybe we can make it easier in the future. Vice versa, .service .name, would be kind of like looking at the resource service name. I think that's pretty common. But if you did resource .service .name, that would be efficient for the same reasons. We can only have to look at the resources, which are way faster. As far as scaling queries, yeah, so Tempo is kind of unique. So we have serverless, and we use that ourselves, and yeah, to achieve like the scale that we need. So that's a really good solution, like depending on your load, and it's cost effective too, right? So because the serverless, the queries maybe are infrequent enough, like makes serverless a lot more cost effective than running queries. So if you haven't done that, I think that would provide instant scale, right? As far as memory, I think our serverless functions run with 2 gigabytes of memory. Yeah, it seems to be okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you can run thousands of serverless functions, and we do. And so that's kind of like an instant way to scale, but it does take some operational setup. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, just saying, wow. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
2
sure.
gigs,
Yeah.
smaller than I thought. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I guess when we've seen query spikes too, and I don't think that's usually from searching. Maybe pulling back large traces can be a thing. As far as queryers, sure, you can scale them up and run a couple hundreds of pods, queryers, and things like that. And they actually have more consistent performance that we've seen than serverless functions, just as far as startup time and tail latency. But as far as if there's anything to do about, yeah, I'm not sure if there's any, hey, can anyone else think of like any specifics or best practices for scaling the query pods specifically?
I mean, the serverless is a good start, but yeah, as Marty said, it's a little more complex to set up. I know we've got some items that we're looking at in the next quarter to help smooth out the query path, but I don't actually know if that's going to help performance necessarily. Yeah, interesting. Add more of them.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah, and it sounds like it's not necessarily required, but sounds like a good, solid approach, though, using serverless here.
Yeah. Query shards. So I'll type this in here, but I think that's the setting name. So that's particularly impactful too. It should be equal to or greater than the number of pods you have. Yeah, so if this is smaller than the number of pods, that means it won't actually scale up enough to make use of every pod.
Oh, interesting. And you're referring to like tempo query or pods in that case?
Yeah.
Oh, would you recommend what was it called? We have the query front end as well. Is that something that needs to be scaled up similarly? I haven't noticed as many spikes there, and I'm not quite sure how it's all wired up. But is that something that needs to be scaled as well?
No, not really. Just a couple pods there is all you need, and that can go quite far. So they're just kind of coordinators and proxies. They don't do a lot of the heavy lifting. Yeah, I think like 2 query front ends just for high availability can run a couple hundred query pods just fine. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's just a lot of tunables for performance. Row group size, like that's a setting. Maximum block size, maximum traces per block. There's kind of like a long list of things to check. But yeah, for just that instant scale, I'd probably go with serverless.
Sounds good. Yeah. Is there any documentation on like how to, tune these knobs, or maybe is there a need for that? Maybe like here's some recommended settings, or like a guide perhaps on tuning that, or maybe that's kind of hard to do perhaps because it's maybe variable on depending on everyone's situation.
Yeah. I think we did change some defaults in 2.0. I think that we found work better. Like some of those defaults were kind of getting outdated. Yeah, it's kind of a tough thing. The variability in traffic does make it hard to choose one set of settings. Yeah.
Sounds good. But yeah. Thanks for all the info.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Timo. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that there's a group function coming to TraceQL in the future. And we want to achieve something like, please show me the 5 most used SQL queries in my trace. Is this something I could use this for?
So the group by in TraceQL is, yeah, maybe like we don't know everything that it would be able to do, but it would be able to like count the number of times each query was used in a trace. And I'm not sure that we have anything in the language about like just ranking them, like show me the top 5, but it could just show you the count for each one. But what also might work is metrics generator. So this is a feature that has been in Tempo for a while. So we can generate metrics from spans. It's a separate component in Tempo. and you can customize the attributes that are turned into metrics dimensions there. Yeah. So if your attribute was like db.query, you could add that as a custom dimension, I think, to the span metrics. And depending on how long that query is, maybe that might not be great. I don't know. Mario knows more about this area. Yeah.
Yeah, I will link the metrics generator docs so everyone can take a better look. But yeah, in a sense, with this component, you can derive metrics from your spans. So you get span level metrics. And additionally, like you can extract any attributes that are present in spans as metric labels. So if you have an attribute in your spans that is SQL statement or something of the like, you could extract it and have it as metric, and then operate with it just as regular metrics. And yeah, you could do top 5 SQL statements. The only caveat or limitation is this is a span level. So I think for your initial example would work perfectly, since this would be like a span level question, or yeah, question that you want to ask. But yeah, I think it's a different approach to getting metrics out of traces, and so far it's worked well. It's simple and useful.
But would I then also see, like, in one trace how often a certain query is used?
No, that's the limitation I was referring
Okay.
to. This is span level. It doesn't record metrics with knowledge of the entire trace. It's per span only. Yeah.
Okay, I will check it. Thanks.
Yeah, that's exciting. There's definitely a lot of things that we can do. So TraceQL is a good start, but now that we have this, I'm sure, yeah, the language will go in wild directions. That would be fun. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to put this link in the doc too. Oh, all right. Yeah, any other questions or any issues with tempo? Any problems we can solve? These are fun too. Okay, I guess, yeah, otherwise we can wrap up. Unless there's any other topics we'd like to discuss. Sure, yeah, Lucas.
Yeah, is there a way to filter what the distributors send to the metrics generator? Like, can I say like, hey, I only want this service to go? I know that like once the metrics generator gets it, like you can, set the processors on like what dimensions get added to the metrics. But so for example, if I just wanted to say like, I only want to take like, my, like for example, like my publicly exposed web API and only do metrics off of that, as opposed to like all of the other backend services that we have. I may have missed that in the docs, but I didn't see it when I was looking at it the last couple of days.
Yeah, so this is an item that we're actively working on. Yeah, I didn't respond because I was trying to look for the issue to give the most accurate information of the state of that. So yeah, this is something that we definitely intend on doing. Okay, I finally found the issue. It's this one. If you want to subscribe to updates. But yeah, essentially, we just want to filter down what we send to the metrics generator. Although right now, if you want to cut down on cardinality or the metrics that you're sending, there's still workarounds that you could apply. Like, since we're embedding the Prometheus agent in the metrics generator for sending metrics via remote write, you could apply relabel configs to drop labels, to drop metrics, and to do all the magic that relabel configs do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was just curious because we do like I forget what, I think it's like 1.5 or 2 terabytes of traces a day, but we only actually care about the APM statistics on just a handful of those services. So it's it's a lot less workload for the metrics generator to just not have to be sent that at all. When I was using another APM tool, I was trying to do the filtering like at the hotel agent, send everything to Tempo and then only send a subset to this other tool that I had building the APM stuff. And so now I'm trying to switch from that APM tool to Tempo for APM. So I was just wondering if there's a way to do it, but it's not a huge deal, just mainly if it's on the roadmaps.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Then hopefully we'll have a explicit solution, just filtering in the metric generator itself. For now, yeah, if we want to investigate, yeah, you can still apply reliable configs to the Prometheus agent, and this will do all kinds of magic, like drop in specific metrics, specific labels, and it will still eat into memory and CPU in the metric generator. But since you're not writing them, you're still saving a lot in your metrics storage. Yeah, if maybe this is too deep to get into reliable configs, if you're not familiar with them or want to chat, maybe we can move the conversation to the public Slack or someone else to, yeah, talk more in depth.
Cool. Good question. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up. Again, happy to see all the new faces. Definitely welcome. And this was yep, really excited about Tempo 2.0. Check it out, and I guess we'll see you next month. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye. Take care.